Okay, awesome. All right. Thank you all for being here today. We greatly appreciate your time. And I want to say that I'm excited to present on this topic. Obviously, this is something that is not exciting for most people, though, but I'm excited to and happy to present on this topic because it's such a big deal for so many people these days. Whether you are in the situation of having already been laid off or you're concerned about it, the tips and advice that we're going to give you today is going to kind of go across the board to help you either prepare for that possibility if you're concerned about being laid off, and also if you've already been laid off. And the advice that we're going to give you, we'd like you to consider using the tips and advice based on where you're at kind of in your process of dealing with your job search. But we also would recommend that you leverage the advice that we're going to give you today too, based on or kind of in the order that they're presented, if you will. And I'm going to stay off of video. I'll go back on video when we get closer to our Q&A portion. I just want to make sure that the internet's working well and I'm not using up any of my bandwidth on video versus making sure that you all get the content. So thanks for being here today. We greatly appreciate your time. My name's Hallie Crawford. I'm a certified career coach, speaker, and author. I was lucky enough to start my company in my late 20s and kind of find my passion early on in my life. And I've been a certified career coach since 2002. I have an undergraduate degree from Vanderbilt and a graduate degree from the University of Illinois. And I'm a very proud partner with Georgia State. We're excited to launch our webinar series with them and look forward to monthly webinars with them throughout the rest of this year on different topics. We would love to hear about different topics that you would like us to present on and talk about. We obviously feel like this one is pretty timely, so we started out with this one first. And the advice that I'm giving you all today is advice that we give to all of our career coaching clients. So our company is based in Atlanta, Georgia. We have coaches and resume writers all over the country and clients everywhere. And our goal is to help people get into the right job as quickly as possible with searching all of their really stressful as help it be easier and better for you. So let's go ahead and start to dive in. The next couple of slides here, I'll show you where we're going for today, what our agenda is. But first, we want to talk for just a second about, why this is so important. I think it can be a very scary time for people. And see statistics like on this next screen here. Climbing, and it's not just the tech industry. There are layoffs occurring kind of across the board, and so we totally understand that this can be scary, and we almost want to say in some cases like turn off the news so that you're not watching it, because coming at or approaching your job search from a fear-based perspective obviously is not going to help at all, and that's part of what we're going to talk about today. So we know that layoffs can really be overwhelming for people, and this is part of why we wanted to talk about this topic. It's overwhelming, it can be scary. There are lots of different things that happen to people as a result of either being concerned about being laid off, or if you already have, it can create and cause anxiety. Might have concerns about severance and like, can I negotiate things? Some people will ask us, can I negotiate my severance? How do I know what I'm going to get? Some clients will tell us when they get laid off, they're just unsure what to do next, and they kind of get frozen sometimes in their fear and their anxiety, which we totally get. It can take an emotional on people. And a lot of our clients too, and this is part of what we're going to talk about today, and we'll launch our first poll here at the top to kind of gauge where you all are at in terms of feeling and all that. But a lot of clients will tell us just not really sure how to, I'm really wisely in conducting a job search. Like, what's the best use of my time, and how do I know what that is in any given moment? Like, how do I schedule and structure things? So let's take a look at our first poll here, if we could. I'll go ahead and start that. And we're really curious, like, what is your greatest fear or concern regarding being laid off? So if you could go ahead and respond to our first poll. We'll give it just a moment here. It could be, I'm concerned about, now I'm going to have a gap in my resume. It could be that you're concerned, how, conduct an effective search, especially when you're stressed out. How long will a search take? It's hard to know exactly, but the good news is, just by the way, as we're working through this poll, that the job market still is really good. Even though there's layoffs, I feel like these times that we're in are unprecedented, that there are a lot of companies still actually hiring on the other side of things here. And then obviously there's that anxiety and the emotional impact that we have. So far we've got 50% are saying, how long will my search take? We've got second in line there, uncertain how to search or job search effectively. And then we've got 20% with the anxiety and emotional impact. So I'll show you all the results here. And part of why we wanted to do this poll and share this with you all is to just please know that you're not alone. We all have these different fears and concerns. It's completely understandable. These are the things we're going to address today. And one of the things to think about as we're talking through our advice here is, if you look at the bottom of this slide on the right-hand side, job searching and everything else is a mental game, just like anything else is, playing a sport, et cetera, et cetera. So we want you to be, or get into, as much as you possibly can, a positive mindset about your job search and what your next steps need to be. And I already shared what I feel like the good news is. So a couple of things that we have seen kind of in the market, if you will, is number one, that people are getting jobs faster than they have in the past. Even though layoffs are occurring, on the other end, like we already said, the unemployment rate still remains pretty low. Companies are hiring, and we're finding that our clients are getting a job faster than they thought they would, which is good. The one sort of downside, or the other trend that we are seeing, that I did just want to let you all know about so that you weren't panicking, is if the hiring process for you is taking a little bit longer than you would like, or that you thought it might be, we are finding that even though companies are hiring and people are getting like an offer faster, the hiring process and like just going through the whole thing, and even in some cases like the interview process, is taking just a little bit longer in some cases with certain organizations, because organizations and companies are trying to be cautious and careful about things. And I'm just going to stop my video, like I said, so it doesn't keep turning off and on there. They are being cautious and trying to be mindful and thoughtful about hiring people. So just keep in mind that if the hiring process is taking a little bit longer through the course of, when you're going through your interviews, there's nothing wrong with you and nothing bad going on necessarily. They are just being a little bit more cautious, and we're seeing that kind of as a trend these days. So let's take a look at what our agenda is for today. Just as a quick reminder for anyone who just joined us, you will receive a copy of the recording from today. So you'll get the webinar recording automatically. And if anyone would like a copy of our slides, please feel free to email us. You can email us at the bottom of the right-hand side here at admin@Create Your Career Path. We'd be happy to send you a copy of our slides too, so that you don't feel like you have to frantically be writing everything down. So let's talk about what we're going to do today. We're going to discuss these 5 steps: how to process and deal with your emotions so that you can be in the most positive mindset possible to tackle your job search. What are some of the things that you can negotiate in terms of or related to your severance? Because there are things that you can at least ask for. You may not get all of it, but we at least want you to ask and try to negotiate a little bit. Number 3 is we're going to talk about how to get your house in order related to your resume, LinkedIn, that kind of stuff. Activating your network, asking for and getting support along the way. And we will have time for Q&A at the end. So please make sure that you locate where our Q&A box is. It should be on the left-hand side of your browser. We've got our attendees list, we've got our Q&A box, and then the polls. So anytime you want to ask a question, please feel free to put that in. I'll answer questions along the way if we get like a critical mass of them. Otherwise, we will definitely have time for questions at the end. And keep our email address in your back pocket as well. Just write that down, because if you do have questions, by the way, later on, even a couple weeks later, that you think of at that point, feel free to email me. I'd be happy to answer those. If you're anything like me, I'm actually more introverted than extroverted, and I tend to ask, or think of, I should say, my questions later on after webinars like this. So happy to answer. Just hold on to that. No problem at all. All right, so let's into step number 1 here. And our first step, you've been off where you can start about it. Start this right now. First things that we find with our clients, if they get laid off or when they do, is how important it is to process and deal with the emotions that come with a layoff. Now, I will tell you that sometimes, and you'd be surprised by this, but sometimes we've had clients be really excited that they were laid off because they hated their job and they weren't going to leave on their own, and they just kind of needed that push to get out the door and go find something better. So even if your job was not the right fit for you and you weren't that happy, please know, if we take a look at this first slide here about processing emotions, that number 1, there is going to be a grieving process. There's going to be, you'll probably feel a little bit angry. You might feel sad, missing your coworkers, all of these other things. And it's okay to do that. And even if the job wasn't the right fit for you, you will have a grieving process. This will kind of just naturally happen. So please know that we want you to take the time to journal, to talk with other people, like take a walk in nature, do different things for self-care so that you can process and deal with the emotions that may be coming up for you. Because if you don't deal with them head on and are not open about it, they're going to creep into your job search. And you don't want to go into an interview angry, frustrated, feeling desperate, any of these other things, because those don't come across well. The second thing we want you to do as it relates to processing your emotions is don't take this personally. Remember that they laid you off for whatever reason. It was probably budget cuts, it was restructuring, maybe your company was bought out, whatever was going on. It usually is not something personal, and it's not going to help regardless to take it personally. So remember that you're not alone. This is something that's happening to a lot of people. It's not just about you. And as much as you possibly can, if you look at the third bullet point here, whether it's journaling your feelings, talking with a supportive friend, partner, family member, write down what you're feeling, just at least so you can get it out there and kind of get past those emotions. Give yourself some time to process whatever comes up for you. And when you're leaving your organization, your company, et cetera, make a proactive plan for those people that you might miss. If that's part of the grieving process for you, decide who you want to stay in touch with and make a plan for doing so. Connect with them on LinkedIn, get their contact information, et cetera. Just do what you need to do to really take care of yourself. We spoke with a client a couple weeks ago, and he was really angry at his employer. And I totally get that. He needed to vent for a little bit with one of our coaches over the phone to kind of get it off his chest so that, again, he could move past that so that he wasn't carrying that with him forward, because that's not going to help anybody. It's going to come across in some way, shape, or form. So you need to deal with it. And once you've processed your emotions, if you take a look at this next slide, we want you to start to work on maintaining and boosting your confidence. And there are lots of different things that you can do that can help you boost your confidence so that you're ready to go for your job search. You know what your value is, you know what your worth is, and you're able to articulate it and communicate it. Just like anything else, our attitude affects our actions, which in turn affects our outcome. So whether it's using things on this list, like writing an affirmation that you post on your refrigerator or on your bathroom mirror, whether you review your accomplishments and your resume as you're updating it and really pay attention to everything, or writing a list of everything that you've accomplished in your professional life to date, that can be really helpful. Interviewing or talking with friends and family members about your strengths and what they see is your brand, your value proposition, et cetera. Ask those people about your strengths so that you feel more confident, but know how to articulate those too. Get references or recommendations on LinkedIn before you leave, or if you've already been laid off and already left, get those as soon as possible so that you can have those on LinkedIn to use for your search. but also to read those when you feel like you need a confidence boost. Some of our clients will create a music playlist that boosts their confidence. A lot of our clients, and we want them to do this too, using exercise, getting out in nature, again, processing any of those difficult, frustrating emotions, and thinking about, okay, what's going to get me into a positive mindset? So as much as you possibly can before you start your job search and are working on your resume and everything else, you are doing the things you need to do for that self-care. And there's a few other items here on this next list that I want to bring up that can be incredibly important. Networking and putting yourself out there can actually help boost your confidence and make you feel not alone. One of the things that sometimes happens to us when we're laid off is we kind of go into a hole or into our shell, and we might stay at home more, not reach out, not get out of the house, et cetera, et cetera. Putting yourself out there and talking with other people, even those who have been laid off, but also people who you know in your inner circle who are still employed, can help you get out of your own head and push aside any of these fears. Another thing we want to point out from this slide in particular is make sure that you're not bashing your previous employer to anyone. Friends and family that you know really well, if you need to get it off your chest, okay, fine. But especially when you're going into an interview or a networking situation, don't do that. It's not going to make you look good. And finally, we want you to avoid any negative Nellies in your life. Surround yourself with positive influences and people. Be around and make the time to spend time with people that are positive, optimistic, just in general in your life. And one of the other things that you can do is you can pay attention to what other people are doing on LinkedIn to network, stay positive in their search. We find that LinkedIn networking groups, especially those with your fellow alumni or industry specific groups, and people who are talking about how it feels to be laid off, the different things that they're doing to network and conduct their search, that can give you some great ideas about what you can be doing, but also help you stay positive. And finally, as part of processing your emotions, what we are telling our clients here is to think about instead, okay, what does this layoff open up the door for me for? Like, what's the opportunity here? Is this a time that I could look at and say, okay, am I even on the right career trajectory? Is this the type of job or career path I want to be in? This is our ideal career model that we use with all of our clients to help them determine their career direction, know whether they are in the right career path or in the right job, like fit wise, and also to help them start to develop their brand. And this could be an opportunity for you to say, okay, look, I really enjoyed my previous job, but I'd like to get into the next opportunity where I can be maybe even more challenged or where I can move up the ladder. Or you might say to yourself, I didn't really like my job anyway. This is an opportunity for me to find the right next fit. So print out this model, use it. You can use it as a checklist to brainstorm alternative career ideas and find out what might be better for you. And just very quickly, I'll walk you through this because it's pretty self-explanatory, but you want to find your next opportunity based on what's going to be fulfilling and rewarding to you, based on the tasks that you most enjoy and that you'd like to perform going forward, based on your top 5 strengths and those strengths that you want to leverage in your next opportunity, based on your past education and experience. How do you want to leverage those things? You need to also think about, for the right fit, your personality type, the work environment, and obviously compensation is critically important as well. When you're thinking about your personality type and work environment, these are things, just by the way, that are things like, are you more introverted or extroverted? Are you a more big picture strategic thinker or more detail oriented person? And what type of work environment do you want to be in? Is it a large or small type of organization? Is it something that's more formal or more informal? And finally, with compensation, more and more these days, people are not just thinking about the money. They're thinking about the benefits. Do I want remote work? Do I want a hybrid working model? Can I get some flex time? Those types of things are more important kind of post-COVID, as people have been evaluating what their priorities in their life are, as well as in their career path too. So final thought on processing your emotions, try to see this layoff in some way, shape, or form as an opportunity. What does this create the space in my life for. Step number 2 is we want you to think about and negotiate your severance if you're still in the mode of being able to do so. So a couple of things we want you to think about here is with your severance package that they're offering you, make sure that you really read through it and read the fine print before you sign it. When we say here, do you need a lawyer to review it? We don't want to freak people out. Most people do not get a lawyer to read their severance package, but every once in a while, if it's a little bit more complicated in your situation, you may want to consider that only for these more kind of complicated situations. But make sure that you understand the terms before you sign everything, and think to yourself and have a conversation either with your boss or with HR. Can you negotiate a few things that can help you out in the long run or in the short term here while you're looking for something else? And here are some of the things that you can consider asking them about. Or could you get extended health coverage? Again, you don't have to pay COBRA, something like that. Actual months. Stock options payout. Could you get increased pay? Even if it's, a few $1,000s, that can go a long way. Could you ask them if you could be vested in your retirement plan, for example? Can you extend your time frame? So, for example, could you ask for a couple of more weeks of being able to stay there in order to extend more time to search for something else? Could you maybe freelance or consult for them for an extra 6 months or something like that until they hire someone new? Can you ask for extended time that you can say that you're employed there so that you can leave on your LinkedIn profile or say that on your resume? Yes, and work somewhere else within the organization. Now, I know, again, not all of this can be realistic, and I'm not saying that every single thing, check the box. Don't just take them down. We want you to be proactive about negotiating for some of your severance terms. And if you don't ask, you're never not going to know. And the answer is automatically no. If anyone has other ideas about what they negotiate or have negotiated in the past, I'd love to feel free to put those in the Q&A box because there could be some other things that we're missing here, and we'd love to hear other things. So please let us know other things that you consider negotiating or have negotiated in the past. So make sure with number 2 that you're negotiating for your severance in whatever way, shape, or form you think you can get. And if nothing else, like we said, ask the questions. Step number 3 would be to then update your resume, LinkedIn cover letter, elevators. Now, we'll talk about cover letter and elevator speak a little bit because some people have access to people really care about those anymore, and we do actually want to have our clients have those, and you'll see why kind of as we discussed today. But the next thing you need to do, obviously, is to update your materials so that you are ready to go for your job search. Because once you start putting yourself out there, people are going to be asking for these things, and they're also going to be going to your LinkedIn profile. So you want to make sure they're in good shape. And your cover letter, resume, and LinkedIn profile should not just sell you effectively, but they need to brand you as well. And we'll tell you what that means as we go in the next few slides. Top tips with your resume to start with: check the formatting, make sure everything's consistent there. Make sure on your resume you have a summary statement that sells you and brands you at the top. This is one of the things a lot of our clients, when they come to us, they don't have that. They just get right into their experience and skills. And we do want you to have a couple of sentence summary, and we'll show you an example on the next slide, that really sells you for that specific job. You tailor your resume for every single job that you're applying to. Make sure in your experience section on your resume and LinkedIn, you are mentioning marketable results, that your statements and bullet points are as results oriented as they possibly can be. And when you can, include statistics and numbers. And finally, really important thing these days as we get into, AI, Chat GPT, and companies use those applicant ATS scanners, applicant tracking system scanners, make sure that your keywords are listed, or the relevant keywords are listed in your resume and on your LinkedIn. SEO your materials, which means search engine optimize them. And we've got this here at the bottom of this slide: jobscan.co, resume, worded and jobalytics.co are all really good resources that to help you put in the words in, etc. How employers will find you, and also how you can get past applicant tracking system scanners. Chat GPT can also help you adjust your resume keyword wise and otherwise to job opportunity. Talked on the previous slide about a compelling government, and I just wanted to give you a quick example. This other person summary why we're talking about summary, we need these 4 bullet points here at the top. You don't have to bullet point your about. If you would like to, you got really specific knit strips, you can bullet it out like this, or you can have it in one longer paragraph of about 4 sentences. But we like this as an example, especially for someone who is very rich, very certain area. Also, this is that if you're looking to transition into a different industry or career path, this can help you by placing and listing out, if you will, the transferable skills for that new industry. So make sure that you've got a summary, and that it's compelling. And we do want you to revise your summary for each job you're applying to. This should not take several hours. It should be a really good summary in the first place that you can just adjust some of the keywords and a little bit of the language in that summary as well. The second thing we want you to consider when you're updating your resume is fancier these days, we do want you to consider using like our blue, green, or red, something like yellow or orange, a little too bright. We usually use blue with our clients, and you can use color in your different header sections to kind of break up your resume, make it look more contemporary, but also easier for an employer or recruiter to scan. And then when we're looking at your employment history on your resume in particular, there are 3 different ways to highlight your job history, and most of you have probably at least heard about these different types of resumes. The chronological is the most common, and this is if you've stayed in the same industry, steady growth and advancements, and if you're looking to stay within the same industry or type of job that you've been in. A functional resume focuses on skills and functions, and this is usually better if you're trying to make a career transition. And we really like, for people though who are looking to make a career transition but want to kind of stick with a little bit of the chronological format, we like a hybrid or combination resume, a combination of the two, because sometimes strictly or purely functional resume, sometimes employers and recruiters balk at that a little bit. They worry that you're trying to hide something. So if you are looking to transition into something else, and a chronological is not going to be most appropriate for you, we would suggest kind of a combination of the two, which would be a hybrid, by the way. And as we're working on updating your employment history, some of the other top tips that we give to our clients is make sure, in addition to having those marketable results, like we already said, that you start your sentences with really active kind of proactive verbs. Here are some examples here on the far left. The second thing we want you to consider and make sure that you include is to select like the top 5 to 7 accomplishments from that particular job that you're listing on your resume that best highlight the experience or successes that would be relevant to the position that you're interested in and applying to. And make sure that those are in order of priority based on importance to that prospective employer. We already talked, if we're looking at the far right-hand side of the slide, about measurable results wherever possible. And when or if you've got a gap because you've been laid off, it's okay to mention what you've been doing in the meantime. Sign up for a class, even if it's something free online, for example, through LinkedIn Learning. Put inside of that gap what you've been doing in the meantime, volunteer positions, whatever it is that you've been doing to kind of help you fill that gap a little bit more. It will help you feel more confident, and it will reduce, the fact that there's a gap on your resume a little bit too. Let's talk next about revising your LinkedIn profile, because this is critically important as well. Your summary in your About section, starting at the left-hand side here, your summary at the top, the About section, can be a little bit more personal, and we encourage you to do that. with your about section on LinkedIn, it is okay to kind of copy and paste your summary from your resume, but we would like you to put like at least one personal statement at the end there about why you're passionate about or enthusiastic about helping your clients, what type of job or organization you are looking for in your job search. With LinkedIn, you can speak to the reader a little bit more, and we encourage you to do that because that's what it's supposed to be for. It's supposed to be a little bit more of a teaser for your resume versus every single thing that's listed out on your resume. Make sure you've got measurable results. We talked about that already. A professional photo. Get recommendations. If you do not have recommendations yet, we recommend working towards getting at least 3 recommendations on LinkedIn from your previous or existing employer would be ideal, but even from previous employers or former colleagues or clients. We like for people to use some excerpts of those recommendations. They can use them on their resume. You could use them in your LinkedIn profile. An excerpt of your recommendation listed in your experience section will help prevent it from being kind of buried at the bottom there. So make sure that you get those recommendations because, by the way, all of this work that we're doing to update your resume and LinkedIn, create a cover letter, your elevator speech, this is content generation that you can use when you're networking to get in front of a hiring manager on LinkedIn. If you wanted to message a hiring manager, for example, or a recruiter, and you put a quick excerpt of a testimonial in there, that way you get noticed and kind of stand out from the crowd. On your LinkedIn profile, you also want to use keywords and search engine optimize your profile. The resources that we referenced a couple of slides ago, they will also scan your LinkedIn profile as well. So you can do both resume and LinkedIn. And we want to have you make sure at the bottom of the middle of the column here on this next or this current slide is want you to make sure that you also go to settings. If you notice, it changes things all the time. New things that they're doing, which is a good thing because they're constantly improving it. But you want to make sure you go through settings. Yeah, I'm open to being viewed by or contacted by employers and recruiters. Make sure that everything that you want to be published and kind of public on your LinkedIn profile is visible and nothing is hidden just in case. Okay. So just go through your settings because if you haven't been in job search mode for a little while, especially with LinkedIn changing so much, it's really important to make sure all of those are up to date. And when we talk about branding your LinkedIn profile, what I suggest to everyone do is make sure that you've got a banner behind your headshot and work on branding it if you can. This is something that we do for our clients. So if anyone's interested in leveraging this service, obviously you can reach me. But we like it when people have a brand image behind their headshot that speaks to what their industry is. It could also be interesting. We've also had clients just have something that is relevant to or even their location, like if they're in Atlanta or somewhere else, like the city skyline. Acceptable too. Conversation. Put a little tagline about who you are, you bring to the table. This helps stand out from the crowd as well in terms of research. And talking about to not just selling yourself as a candidate, but branding you. This is the first thing that people are going to see in some cases when they're Googling you or, when they go to connect with you and for networking purposes. So you want to make sure that you're making not just a really good impression, but that you're letting them know up front, this is who I am. Okay. And this is what I can bring to the table. Let's talk next about your cover. Your cover letter is something that you actually do want you to have, because even though not all employers are going to ask for this, some will, and if they do, you need to be ready. If they don't ask for it specifically, but they give you an opportunity to upload additional documents, This is where you can upload a cover letter relevant to the job. So we want you to have it. And if nothing else, as I said earlier, this is content that you're generating for yourself that you can use during the course of an interview to get to, like on a LinkedIn post, so that you're letting people know on your activity feed, like, this is what I'm doing. This is what I'm looking for. This is who I am. With your cover letter, you want the top, the header of it to match your resume. It needs to be easy to read, short and sweet. You want to tailor it to each position. We do like cover letters having bullet point, like these are the most relevant, I should say, bullet points or marketable results that would be most relevant to this position. And this is also a place that you can include excerpts of testimonials from LinkedIn as well. If you feel like you need help with any of this stuff, I know that resume writing and updating your LinkedIn can feel really overwhelming. We do have resume and LinkedIn writers. And if you'd like to talk about anything and ask additional questions from what we're discussing today, that's why we're here. It's an opportunity to chat with me directly. I can give you some additional advice. And also it's an opportunity to talk a little bit more about our coaching services. This is the same email that you would use to request the slides. Feel free to reach out to us anytime. Finally, in terms of getting your house in order, like content-wise and materials-wise, we do want you to actually write an elevator speech, because this is almost like the beginning of your answer anyway to when someone is, if they ask you, like, tell me a little bit more about yourself in an interview, this can be the beginnings of what you would say. You want to tell people who you are, like what your job title is, your value proposition, and the results that you bring to your clients, your customers, your business, your organization. And then finally, finish up with what you're looking for. And I'll give you an example on the next slide of one elevator speech that we came up with working with a client that we just really like because it's short and sweet to the point. Remember, with your elevator speech, it needs to be quick and easy, but know that you don't have to force every single thing about you into this one elevator speech, because you're going to have an opportunity to talk with this person a little bit more, especially if you're chatting with them at a networking event, you're going to conduct an informational interview, or if you're in an actual interview with them. And the reason why we like this particular example for this environmental engineer who is also a consultant is he talks, and kind of in layman's terms, about, he is a consultant who helps government agencies and private companies get through or navigate through the environmental compliance minefield, which we could all understand that could be pretty overwhelming. He talks about his expertise and where he really focuses. And at the end of it, he also discusses and shares what type of organization he's looking for and what type of job. You want to tell people exactly how they can help you, because if you don't do that, they're not going to be able to know. So be as clear as you possibly can about what you're looking for, what types of questions you want to ask someone, for example, during a networking event or in an informational meeting, so that you're really clear about, how they can help you. They'll be more likely to do so and better able to do so. And that leads us into our fourth step. So after you have your house in order and your materials up to date and in really good shape, this is when you want to start activating your network, because even though with everything else, AI, companies and organizations finding candidates and kind of handpicking them online through LinkedIn, networking is still the best way to get a job if you look at the statistic on the left-hand side here. So we want you to do multiple different things, and we're going to start our second poll here. How many people feel like they know how to use LinkedIn effectively for their search? LinkedIn is the biggest place to be networking. So we want you to start there with your existing network. We would encourage you to join your Georgia State LinkedIn group, because those are going to be warm leads of people that are more likely to get back with you, give you time, give you advice and thoughts. You can also look for industry-specific LinkedIn groups. We have heard from recruiters and employers that in some cases, when they have a hiring need, they will go to their LinkedIn industry-specific group to find possible candidates, because they know that's a pool of people that are already actively engaged, they care about their professional development, et cetera, et cetera. We've had some clients post onto Facebook or social media that they are looking for a new position. For those of you who live in large metropolitan areas, meetup.com can be a helpful place for professional development or networking, sorry. Alumni Association, we already referenced. Check out your industry-specific association, rejoin it, attend some of their meetings. These are places that you can meet people. And I know that you've heard this before, that, networking can happen anywhere, but I just can't reiterate enough. The more people you tell that you're looking, the faster you will get a job. It's just like sales. It's a law of numbers. So social groups, church or organizations, anything else that you belong to, let people know that you're looking, because you just never know who they are going to know who might work in an organization who is hiring. And this hidden job market is really something that you need to tap into. So let's publish our result from our poll. We've got about 50-50, and I'm actually really glad that we have 50% feel like they know how to use LinkedIn effectively for their search. That number is higher than it has been in the past, and I think that people are just understanding more and more, which is fantastic, how important LinkedIn is and getting on the ball with it, so to speak, if you will. So activate your network as soon as you possibly can. Join a couple of LinkedIn groups like we just said, but also set a goal for yourself. So looking at this next slide on the left-hand side, set a goal for yourself. That's part of your job search kind of schedule, that you want to connect, for example, with 5 to 10 new people every single week, that you want to have 2 or 3 informational calls or meetings with a new person every single week as well. Make sure that when you're networking, strategic and specific with each person. Like, how can they best help you? Don't ask them questions about things they're not going to really know based on their position at the organization or the company where they work. Be mindful and thoughtful about how you're using their time so that it's effective for you, but also you come across as really professional and prepared. And on LinkedIn too, you can try or make an effort to identify who a hiring manager is for a particular job, who the recruiter might be for a particular job. Connect with people in your LinkedIn alumni group who are recruiters to see if you can get a few minutes of their time to chat with them for a second about, for example, how you can put your best foot forward in your search. Remember, with informational meetings, looking at this next slide, if it's a one-on-one conversation with someone, it can be over the phone, video conference, in person, and you want to set up these informational conversations as much as you can with people that are in an industry you'd like to work in a role, or at an organization that you might be interested in, but you're never asking them for a job. You're asking them for information, to pick their brain for a moment. Would you mind giving me a couple of quick, job search advice or nuggets on how to put my best foot forward if I'm applying at Salesforce, for example? What are some of the things that they look for because that person works at Salesforce? Those are the types of things that you want to ask for during the course of these informational meetings. It's a really good idea to start with people that you know, because then you can get some practice. And part of why we like these informational meetings is, in some way, shape, or form, it's almost like having an informal practice interview with someone, because you want to be professional, you want to be on your A game. But this is someone that in a lot of cases, obviously, is not a prospective employer. So you can kind of practice with them. Then we want you to branch out to alumni connections, people in LinkedIn groups, industry associations. Again, could I have a quick info meeting with you over the phone for 5 or 10 minutes? I'd just like to pick your brain for a couple minutes to get, some quick advice about ABC. Be specific with them and let them know that you're only going to take a few minutes of their time, that you'd like to ask them these 3 or 4 questions, and send them those questions in advance, as well as times that you can talk with them, to make it easy as easy as possible on them to set up time with you, but also to let them prepare for those questions in advance too. When people ask me for an informational interview or meeting, and they send me the questions in advance, I feel so much better about the whole thing, because I know I can help them. I can prepare in advance, and it shows me that they're professional and they know what they're doing. And as part of your informational meetings, make sure you connect with each of those people on LinkedIn, that you follow up with them with a thank you note via email, and even a handwritten note. I like that as well, to stand out from the crowd, and make sure that you create a plan to stay in touch with them. And step number 5 is, we want you to make sure during this time, because we've already talked a lot about kind of the, the difficulty that we can have, not just in, but like, how do we organize our search and everything else? Ask for and get support from as many people as we possibly can. And we'll launch our third and our last poll here before we get to our Q&A time. A couple of things we want you to think about as it relates to asking and getting support is to support from friends, family members, fellow job seekers, people who are unemployed can help, but also people who are employed, because those are the people that are going to have those connections maybe at other places who might be hiring. We also want you to set a job search schedule for yourself. What are you going to do every single day and during the course of your week? Like, how many hours a day are you going to spend job searching versus self-care versus attending a virtual event or an in-person event? We want you to stay organized with the people that you're talking to and your job applications. Create an Excel spreadsheet so that you know how to stay organized and are staying organized with different tabs for your different job searching efforts. Update your voicemail on your cell phone so that it's your voice and it sounds perky, upbeat, yet professional. And create a professional signature in your email signature line so that it's really easy for people to connect with you, find out how to contact you. And finally, make sure you include in your schedule some time for self-care. Find a job search support partner that you're going to check in with every single week. And I know I'm harping on this self-care a lot. The tactical elements of a job search are critically important, but I just can't tell you how often when we first start out with a career coaching client, one of the first things we ask them is, what's the biggest obstacle to your success? What gets in your way of being successful with your job search? And 9 times out of 10, they will tell me that they are their biggest obstacle. They are the main thing getting in their own way because they're not doing as much as they could for search. They don't feel great. They're not as that we talked about today, even if it's in baby steps. We'd love you to come up with one action item that you will take in the next in baby steps, but make sure you take that time for the self-care and attitude adjustment as much as possible as well. Let's look at our results from our final poll here, and then we'll go ahead and get to it. And then Dave, if you get to say anything in closing, free to. If not, that's totally okay too. We'll close things out here in just a few minutes, making sure that we close out for the hour, be mindful of your time. It looks like we've got 50-50, unsure how to network effectively and unsure how to get in front of hiring managers. I'll address this as we're launching our Q&A here in just a moment here, and I'm going to open the Q&A box so that we've got that. We've had clients do several different types of things to get in front of hiring managers, close the deal in terms of their job, et cetera. So one of the things you want to do to help you stand out from the crowd is make sure that you've search engine optimized your LinkedIn profile, because that's how they will find you, and do the same thing for your resume, as we said earlier. You can try to network your way into an organization by identifying some connections, even if it's a second connection at a certain organization, and see if they can make an introduction to you to either HR or the hiring manager. We talked a few minutes ago, about sending a message to a recruiter through LinkedIn or a hiring manager and trying to get their attention by listing your, for example, the qualifications of the job and your relevant qualifications, the ones that are kind of a side-by-side list, if you will. We had one client once, she was already in the interview process, actually. She had one interview and they were not going to bring her back at the time for the second interview. And she said, hold on a second, I'm very qualified for this job. And there was a recruiter working with her for this particular job, and she sent them a line-by-line, side-by-side list of qualifications for the job and what their requirements are and how she fit those actually perfectly. They ended up bringing her in for a second interview, even though they weren't planning on doing so originally, and she got the job. And she's been in that job for several years now. So it's about being assertive. You need to be professional. This is not about being a stalker, but the more you reach out to people, and connect with them and try to get in touch with hiring managers and recruiters, as long as you are not doing it in an unprofessional way and too often, like more than 2 reach outs, I think is going to be too much. But the more you do that, you're going to be able to get in front of people more and more as you establish additional connections and have more people kind of looking out for you. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about taking action. Please write down at least 1 or 2 action steps that you will take in the next week. It could be the journaling exercise. It could be asking someone for ongoing support. As a quick reminder, as we wait for any questions to come through, and I'll go ahead and answer those, you will receive a copy of our recording automatically today, so keep an eye out for that in your email. If you'd like a copy of our slides, you would just email at the admin@createyourcareerpath.com. We'd be happy to share those with you. And if you'd like to set up a quick strategy session with me, you can feel free to do that way as well through the same email. So before we start to close out, any questions that anyone wants to ask? I'm leaving it through the Q&A tab for right now, just in case I don't want it to, get really loud if it's loud in anyone's background and be distracting for people. But any questions that anyone would like to ask? All right. We do have one person, as we're waiting for Q&A to come in, who is interested in connecting with people or happy to do so. So if you can take a look at the Q&A box, Paul Duke, Business Development Manager, sounds like he would be open to networking with people, which is fantastic. On that same note, please find me on LinkedIn. I would be happy to connect with you and make some networking connections for you as appropriate, depending on what you're looking for. So feel free to do that as well. And as part of our LinkedIn activity, we actually do post a lot of job search tips and helpful articles along the way too. So you can be part of that as well. All right, so we've got a question. I'm 54 and recently laid off. Any tips for older job seekers? Thank you for asking this, because I know that there's a lot of people out there that are closer to our age. I'm 50, so I can say that. The difficulty in some cases for older job seekers, which I think luckily is less of a deal these days, just because more and more people are working later on and into and through retirement, is some people are concerned about ageism. So if that's a concern for you, on your resume and on your LinkedIn, if there's any experience, like job experience or work experience you've had that's older than 10 years, you can remove that. What we've also had some people do is they'll remove their graduation dates from college to help with the possible ageism as well. But what I tell to older job seekers is kind of embrace your age and your experience and demonstrate to prospective employers why that's an asset, why you can hit the ground running, why your networking connections can be helpful to them, why your experience and expertise can be incredibly useful to them as well. And in your LinkedIn profile and in other places, make sure that you're showcasing your skill set in terms of like software and cutting edge technology. Because one of the other things that comes up in terms of ageism, obviously, is you may not know the latest software or social media or whatever it is. So get on the bandwagon with that, as it may be appropriate or not for the relevant positions that you're looking for. Take a class to kind of brush up your skills there and reference those different types of things. In some cases, for older job seekers, we may even have or suggest to them that they create a quick intro video to put on their LinkedIn profile to again show that you're cutting edge. And finally, another question before we hop off is how to stand out when I have only a few related qualifications or skill sets. So leverage or talk about any coursework that you may have that could be relevant, any projects that you've worked on, whether it's volunteer or freelancing, or maybe those are some of the things that you want to go do. If you can get some additional experience in the direction that you're trying to head, that can help not just to put on your resume, but to help you feel more qualified as well. And in order to try to stand out here, you can focus also on your soft skills, what else you bring to the table, leadership skills, ability to manage a team, working with global teams, those types of things. And you may want to consider using a little bit of a hybrid model of a functional as well as chronological resume, like we were talking about before, too. And that can help you stand out from the crowd a little bit more. I hope that helps as a start. I'm going to go on video here before we hop off for today, just to say thank you for being here. If you do have other questions that you want to ask, like I said, later on down the line, please hold on to my email. I'd be happy to respond to any of those. And on behalf of Georgia State, I really appreciate you being here as well today. We are going to be hosting webinars once a month, so keep an eye on your email for those announcements about those different topics. And if there's a specific topic, as I said earlier, that you would really like to hear about, please feel free to email me at admin@createyourcareerpath.com. I would be happy to consider that, especially if we've got a lot of people asking about that particular topic as well. Happy to do so. Keep an eye on your email for the recording of today too. And in the meantime, we hope you have a great day and good luck. We know that this being laid off thing can feel really frustrating, but remember the good news that we talked about earlier, that you will get something faster. It is not, this economy is not like anything I think that we've ever seen before in the past. Good luck, stay in touch, and have a great rest of the day, everybody. Thank you for your time.